Welcome to the ONS podcast with your host, Linnea Jacobson.
Welcome back, you guys, to our ONS podcast brought to you by our partners at Face to Face Academy. ONS stands for Office of Neighborhood Safety. I'm your host, Linnea Jacobson, and I am a member of the ONS team. This podcast was created for departments like us and community organizations to come on and talk about our services. All of the episodes are about connecting you to alternative public safety measures, programs, and your local growth and healing opportunities. Today, we have JK Movement in the house. JK Movement is a youth mentoring program currently located in the Rondo neighborhood of St. Paul. The purpose of this organization is to guide youth on education and career pathways while fostering growth and healing. JK Movement also works to pour into youth who have had obstacles in the past that just need direction and support. Welcome, the Executive Director, Johnny Allen. Welcome, Johnny.
Guten Morgen. No, I'm just playing. That was actually morning in German. I got it all wrong. But how are you?
I'm good. Johnny, give me a 30-second spiel on who you are.
Yes, well, thank you. I'm honored to be here with ONS. But my name is Johnny Allen Jr., founder and executive director of the JK Movement, product of Rondo. Grew up on Aurora and St. Albans, went to Highland Park Senior High, graduated from the University of St. Thomas. And I'm just a product of the community that I grew up in, which was centered around love, caring, holding us accountable, and using our skill sets to flourish out here in the community and be productive citizens.
That's awesome. Thank you for that. So when I introduce people, I always do like an icebreaker question that has nothing to do with the topic. It's just a random question to get to know you. Okay?
Yep.
So I have one for you. Deep dish pizza or New York style?
I'm deep dish.
Okay.
Yes, it's Chicago deep dish.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why Chicago deep dish though?
I just like the extra dough. I like the way, depending on where it's from. The extra cheese.
Yeah.
And then the buttery crust and the dough and depending on the sauce, people, it's all about that sauce, and so Chicago deep dish tends to be the priority when it comes down to my pizza choices, definitely over New York, because New York is too thin and
it be sliding, the cheese slides off. Yeah, I know. But for me too, I like deep dish because I can just have one piece or done. 1.5 pieces and be done.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That's an easier pizza to share.
It's a lot filling, more filling.
Exactly.
Yes.
With Johnny, he has Karen Barrage, and Karen is their case navigator. Welcome, Karen.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Give me a 30-second spiel about yourself.
Well, I moved to Minnesota in 1994. Been here ever since. I moved right into the Rondo community on Selby. Brought along with me my 3 children, who at the time were 6, 8, and brand new baby. I was like 8 months old. And I raised them here and absolutely love Minnesota. I love the values here. I love the family values, and I just made it home.
Tell me about the kids really, really quick. I won't make you spend too much time about this, but we were talking about kids prior to this. How old are your kids now?
They are now 38, 36, and unfortunately my would have been now 30-year-old has passed away like 5 years ago, but yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to hear. But one of the things that I noticed too, because my kids are getting big, is that you don't stop being mom.
Never.
No matter how old they are.
Never.
Right? They can be like in their 40s and you're still going to be their mom.
Yeah, still at my house every other day, every weekend. Mom, what you cooking? Yeah, they don't go away.
That part. Karen, I got a question for you too. And you have to answer whether you do this or not. Okay? Okay. Downhill skiing with lunch at the bottom of the hill, or I'm in the clubhouse next to the fireplace drinking cocoa. Let me know when y'all get done and I'll meet you down there.
I'll be in the clubhouse drinking the cocoa because I don't ski and I love the warmth out of it. I'm not a cold person, even though I'm here in Minnesota.
Me too. Last but not least, we have Lindsay Stump, who is the Center Activities Director and does the healing over at JK Movement. Lindsay, give me a 30-second spiel about yourself.
Well, I am originally from Iowa. I just moved up here probably 6-7 months ago, so I'm getting acclimated in a way to the weather. Iowa is pretty similar, coldness-wise. I played college softball, basketball, graduated criminal justice degree. I worked in a college for almost 20 years. I was a director of residence life, and I coached college softball as well.
Well, welcome, Lindsay. I have one question for you. Expedia, I know what I'm doing, or call the travel agent, let them set it up, and tell me when to show up.
Call the travel agent.
Okay. What's your favorite place to travel?
Somewhere warm. Mexico is always a favorite.
Yeah.
Florida's nice.
Florida is I can't get to Mexico right now,
Exactly.
so I'm going to go to Florida
Yes,
and pretend
exactly.
like I'm in Mexico.
Exactly,
With the
yes.
weather. Yeah.
Yeah. And being from Iowa, you have the lakes also here. So we hit up the lakes a lot. So
Well, welcome. So let's jump right into these questions. Johnny, let's start with you. You kind of gave me a little bit of the background during your introduction, but tell us a little bit about your upbringing and who your influencers were in your life.
So yes, I grew up on Aurora in St. Albans, Rondo neighborhood, and during my time, the community was just very dope. Let me just be comfortable and say that. Everyone knew everyone. We had the neighbor who was like, "Get off my lawn," Mrs. Coleman, Mr. and Mrs. Coleman. I had my next door neighbors who I grew up with all my life. I had my relatives, my cousins lived on one corner. I had another cousin that lived down the block. I had another cousin that lived around the corner. So family was always tight-knit. And then growing up with my friends and peers, I grew up during the time where you used to go down, play football in the middle of the street, used to go to the closest school and play baseball with a tennis ball, play touch and tackle and crunch football, play 500. I grew up during that era where we played outside more than we played inside. And mother calling you, get in the house before the lights. I was that kid.
Yep.
So
It was a different time.
It was a different time, and it was fun, and it taught us some of those values I still imply and live by today. So I grew up during that time, that era, and it molded me outside of my family. And you said my influencers, definitely my mom and dad. I grew up in a 2-parent home, but the whole neighborhood was like my family. Like I said, everyone knew everyone. The old heads held us accountable. I always say this. I'm so honest when I say this. So my dad and mom was well known in the neighborhood. I lived a block away from a liquor store and a bar. And I grew up during the time where we still had adult-themed buildings on University. I say that to say this. I can go down the block, go around the corner to the liquor store, walk towards my cousin's house, and the local wino be like, "What you doing around here? Aren't you blood, son?" That's my dad's nickname. But man, leave.
Yeah.
So even though he had his way of living, he knew who I was, and he knew the child or who was my parents. So the old heads just held us in a standard like, look,
Yeah.
don't be around this time. Don't be around here. Get going. You know what I'm saying? So, and we missed that.
The elders in the
The
community.
elders of the community.
Yep.
And we missed that tremendously, and it shows right now. But that's where I grew up. I grew up in that time in that neighborhood, but my parents are my biggest influencers by far. Like I said, I have a lot of influencers, a lot of people who I look up to, a lot of mentors, but my parents are my ultimate.
Yeah, things were different. I remember growing up, and my whole entire family, we all lived within a 5-block radius of each other. And you just get on your bike or you put on your shoes and you go from
Facts.
your aunt's house to your other aunt's house to your uncle's house. I had an aunt that lived 3 houses down.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Who just sold her house just like recent, after living there for so many years. It's like things are just so different now.
Yeah.
And it was a different time, but it was a good time.
It was a great time.
And I feel like I'm just like really old saying that. Because that's what old people always say. Oh, back in the day.
Hey, it's true. I mean, we're like Benjamin Buttons out here.
Yeah, we are. So where did you come up with the concept for JK Movement? And when did you realize there was a need for this in St. Paul?
I grew up in a giving family, so my parents were always givers. That kind of bled into me too, in regards of who I was or how I was brought up. So once again, I'm gonna bring community because it's one of the reasons why JK was formed and created. The elders of the community, the mentors who I looked up to, my peers, we all held ourselves in a standard and held ourselves accountable. Good, bad, ugly, and dark, we all persevered of some sort with that type of love. So as I got older, in high school, I was always volunteering. I used to go to my old elementary school, Maxfield Elementary, and I would just mentor third graders. My favorite teacher, Miss Swanson, who she retired, but she would let me come in and mentor her elementary students, and I would do that. And then when I got into college, I became a big brother. I always was in some kind of profession or employment where I was a mentor-mentee type of setting because I wanted to give. I wanted to provide those type of lessons and values that I was blessed to be able to receive in my upbringing, not only my parents, but the neighborhood in general. So just always was wanting to be a role model and lead. I was fortunate enough to play sports, so I was a student athlete as well. I was a captain on my football team my sophomore, junior, and senior year. So being able to have that responsibility and being looked up as a positive influence to my peers and a trusting person that led for me to just continue doing this work. So graduated from college. I graduated with a general business degree and was actually in corporate for a hot second in logistics, but sitting in them pods just wasn't my thing. So I was always still volunteering or coaching football or whatever the case may be. So I just started leaning more towards of doing that type of work. And I actually started working at a level 3, level 4 school to kind of just learn about me and how to work with young folks that are a little challenged, that are tough around the edges, but still beautiful, And so I was taking those skill sets, learning from my peers and mentors, and was like, I want to start my own biz because I was raised to try to do, ownership and run your own ship. So I just started learning what it would take to formulate a nonprofit, started creating that blueprint, started looking at people who I grew up with, who I idolize and consider a mentor of mine. And that's one of the things we try to help our young folks too, to never burn bridges, because some of these people were my teachers. So went back to that, started formulating a board, going through the paperwork of becoming a certified 501(c), and just plunged right in it while still working. So I was moonlighting, that's the word, I was moonlighting, creating my own business while still making sure I had some sort of funds to provide for myself and no family at the time. So, and then what was it, 2010, 2011, I had the opportunity to kind of go to my old junior high, which is Highland Junior, and start providing after school programming. And it wasn't until 2011 we became official, but they gave me that opportunity. From there, we just was able to grow ever since. So I was in the profession of giving because of my upbringing. I learned certain skill sets, learned how to maneuver. And granted, this is back in 2009, 10, 11. So, times done changed, but the way you interact with youth and formulate trusting relationships, that was key to me. I wanted to be able to form a trusting relationship with the young folks and the families. So just certain skill sets throughout the path, and that's how JK Movement was created.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
I think sometimes when we are young and we're going to school and we're thinking about what we want our career path to be, right? And then we get behind the desk and we start doing the work of the job, but then our life experiences as both a youth and an adult start to make us figure out what our passion really is, because when you're young, you think you have a passion, right? You know what you want to do. You know what I mean? You think you know what you want to do. But then when you get out here and you start living life and you see that there's a need and you have a passion for it, that's when you start to change your career path and kind of come up with ideas like, what can I do that can foster this passion and give back?
one key piece that I missed out, and it was when I was in college. I was playing football at St. Thomas, and the coach asked me to come and speak to some young folks that were coming from the north side. I was like, okay, black kid from the neighborhood, got some kids from north side. Okay, I get it, coach. But I went and spoke to them, and it wasn't the fact that I spoke to them about my journey and just saying, stay in school and, make the right choices. It was the aftermath of it, because a week or two later, I got a card from some of the students, and they said, thank you.
Yeah.
I was like, damn. I was like, okay, I'm a college student. I didn't think nothing of it, but that really helped me understand what my path and purpose was going to be.
Yeah.
That piece of the pie right there. So that was very important, because that's how I kind of figured out what path I wanted to go into, because I was thinking about sports. I always knew it was going to be sports related, being that I was a student athlete, but I didn't know the other half of it.
Yeah.
There was a time that I thought I was going to do suits and do tailor suits for athletes, but I was like, nah, that's too much. So, so leadership came about, and just wanting to lead by example, have that integrity for the young folks to look up to. So that helped a lot.
I love it. So, Johnny, can you tell me a little bit about the work that you are doing in partnering with us with the ONS?
Yeah, and first and foremost, I want to thank you again for the opportunity. ONS is very supportive with the JK movement. Brookie and Faith, who I know personally, and now meeting you guys have a strong team. And, of course, there's a couple other staff members who I know personally. But ONS is an integral part of our collaboration and ecosystem in regards of, once again, we're talking about the stakeholders in the community for our babies and families. And ONS is one of those entities that we have relationships with that provide those resources as well as support when we're doing something, either from an event perspective or coming in person, or us doing a collaborative effort to reach some of the young folks that you guys work with directly, so, and vice versa. So very thankful for ONS, and very thankful and privileged and honored that you guys consider us a community partner. So those are some of the things that we kind of work with ONS on, and looking forward to trying to figure out how we can expand on those services as well.
Awesome. Yeah. Lindsay, you do the directing for the activities and the healing and stuff like that. Tell me a little bit about the programming that you guys have at JK Movement.
Sure. On Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, we split it up. We combined the youth, older and younger, and we bring in community partners to come in and facilitate different groups, because not everybody has the same interests. So we kind of try to make sure creative arts is one day. There's a learning day in there, and then a physical day. So we just try to make sure we meet everybody's needs with programming. And like I said, we have facilitators coming in for an hour and a half to kind of work with those kids, showing them different ways of doing things. We had, Tavius come in last month, and he did cooking. So they went through the basics of cutting and preparing the meals and then cooking. So it just gives them a lot of times life skills that they don't know they're going to really need, but they like doing it.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I hate to keep chiming in with all of my thoughts and my opinions, but that is key, because one of the things that I noticed is that a lot of schools are cutting out the whole thing that we used to call home ec, which is basically life skills, right? When it's time to cut a budget or to make budget cuts, that is usually like one of the first things to go, that and music. And these are things that help with mental health. These are things that help the kids know how to sew on a button and cook themselves a meal, right? And these are the things that help people figure out how to improvise too. Sometimes you don't have a lot and you need to know how to get it together. And those things are disappearing. The kids are not getting that in schools anymore. So I think that is kudos to you guys for doing that. I know you guys also do career readiness, and you push education. You know what I mean? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, Johnny could probably go into this a little bit in detail better than I can, but we do have a Learn and Earn program for the older kids that we provide on Tuesday nights. where they come in and they could go on field trips, they could go to construction sites, they can go to kitchens, they can go wherever that, we're able to, and teach them the skills that they're going to need for each of these career areas. And then they earn money by doing this.
Oh, I bet they love that.
They do love that. And then on Wednesdays, we just started college prep for those students who may not know exactly how it works, once they get into high school or after high school, just giving them different avenues. If you don't want to go the college avenue, there's the tech area, there's just different areas that they may not have known.
Yeah, there are so many
there.
different trades out there.
Yeah.
That pay even more.
Yes, exactly.
Way more. Yes.
I'm thinking about becoming a plumber. Johnny, can you expound on it a little bit more?
Lindsay explained it pretty smooth. When they're young, we want to help them get exposed to the opportunities that we present and have fun doing it, from a leadership perspective as well as a healing perspective, and we can elaborate a little bit more on that as well. But from 9th grade up, and I said this at our open house actually, we want them to start thinking about the next stage of life.
Yes.
Because time is precious and time is like that, a snap of the finger.
Goes by quick.
Yes. Before you know it, you're graduating. And we really want to prepare them to, like Lindsay mentioned, either go to college, post-secondary, or some kind of trade school or some kind of career that you can jump into. So the Learn and Earn program and the college prep is to just get them ready, get them prepared for the next level of life, next stage of life, which is 18, 19, and to like 30. So it's just the opportunity to work, get your feet wet in different industries that we have connections with. Lindsay mentioned construction. We have commercial real estate that comes in. We have the tech. We're working on getting the healthcare piece of it. We're working on the music piece as well. We did that in the past. But these type of industries is just something to, learn, have fun about, and also learn the behind the scenes piece of it too, because there's so many positions and careers that they can take advantage of outside of just the singing piece of it. There's engineering, there's producing for music, or for construction. There's like you mentioned, or carpentry or plumbing, or different ways of getting your feet wet without thinking from the front end of it. So we just want to get them exposed, but also get ready for that next stage of life.
Exactly. How many people do you think you serve in the community, and how can people participate?
So, we always have this magic number. Our magic number is usually around, and this is with all of the programming, from programs to community outreach to community events, the whole gamut. We try to serve around 1,400 youth yearly.
Wow.
Just, getting in front of them, getting exposed to what we offer, collecting information and or taking part of the event itself. 1,400 is always our key number because, we're not only are we Rondo and Ramsey County, we're surrounding metro too.
Right.
So,
there we go.
yeah.
Karen.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
So you are the case navigator.
Yes.
And can you just tell me a little bit about your position, because I want to hear more about the healing opportunities.
Well, case navigator role is new to the JK movement. It's myself and a young lady named Justina, unfortunately could not be here right now. And our role is to work with I say scholars, with the participants. So it's working with the scholars and their parents, their families, working alongside the teachers, the counselors, with the schools. I'll say with the schools. We serve as a bridge between the schools, the families, and the scholars, helping them to figure out what the needs are, what it is that the scholars are missing, helping them to set goals and figure out what paths they want to take in order to fulfill their education. And it also helps with the families as they have, needs. There are a lot of, as we were talking about the mental health, there's a lot of mental health going on nowadays because of the lack of what's needed with families and the communities, and trying to help keep our kids out of some of the negative things that are going on in the communities, showing them better ways of navigating through what they have to face day to day. speaking from a standpoint of, I'm going to say mother and grandmother now, because some of my own kids have went through the JK Movement program.
Okay.
Who are now 18, 19, 20, and 21.
Yeah.
And just to see the outcome from them is one of the reasons why I joined the JK. But as a navigator and also understanding what it is that is needed, of the community members and the scholars and the families, it helps us to navigate, to help them figure out what goals should be. Because, you say set a goal, but, most kids don't know where to start.
Don't know where to start.
Some families, you have parents that are older than us, and they don't know, how to even explain to their scholars goal setting, what it is you might need to take next steps, like you say, to go from middle school to high school, to go from high school to college, so it's helping them set those goals. And then with our financial program is financial literacy, teaching them what's valuable, what you need to survive, as far as even groceries.
Exactly.
Some of them don't even know the cost of bread, and if they don't know what those costs are, they don't know what the value of it is, and they misuse everything. What we're doing is helping them to learn so that we can bridge the gaps in their learning and their growth, and hopefully making a better path for them.
Exactly. Two things. I got goosebumps when you said scholars. I love that.
Yes.
I believe in speaking things into existence.
Yes.
I believe in speaking excellence into our children.
Absolutely.
And what you call them is what they will become.
Yes.
And I just commend you for that. I started calling my kids the CEO and the doctor about 10 years ago, and I swear that's the path that they're on. And I said,
beautiful.
praise God, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And then the second thing is, I think that sometimes as a community, we take for granted that we had moms and dads at home, and we learned the things that we think are simple, regular, everyday things.
Yes.
And some of our kids don't have that. You know
Right.
what I mean? Some of our kids don't have that. So there's organization like JK Movement that creates that platform so that the kids can come in and get what they may not be getting at home.
Absolutely.
Mom may be super busy or working 2 or 3 jobs, and she may not have the means to sit down with so-and-so and teach him how to budget and work on his FAFSA
Yes.
or something for
Yes.
college or whatever, right?
Or may not know herself.
Or may not know herself. So these are the kind of things that we need to continue to have in our community. And I commend you guys for that. Now, with your case management stuff, you know that there's a healing component too that may come into play that some of our youth may need more than others. So tell me how that works with your program, Lindsay, and your referrals. How does your jobs intertwine like that?
I think they intertwine quite well, and a lot. I think to start the process, when we do bring a kid in, they go through the intake packet, and a bunch of questions are asked. What are your goals? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Just short-term, long-term goals, what you need help with. What are you struggling with in school? What are you struggling with in society? Or just, with people. And I think we take that and then try to find that root, what caused that. And I think a lot of our programs help bring that out a little bit. I mean, we're not always going to get right to the source, but we're starting to identify a little bit more with our programming.
Karen, you want to expound on that, or?
Yes. We also speak with the parents in the initial intake so that the parents can enlighten us a little more because, of course, like I've mentioned to some parents, the scholars will tell you, yes, I'm doing good, I'm great, but they're really lacking in some subjects, things like that. So the parents will, give us a little more insight on, what's going on with scholars. And then it also helps us to establish a bit more of a rapport with, with the families in turn. So we're talking with the mom, the dad, whomever is involved, and the scholar as well, so that we're establishing a relationship. Because that's what we want to do. In order to promote healing, we have to establish a rapport with not just the scholar, but the entire family.
That part.
Yes.
And can I just chain link on that? With that being said, not every kid or family is for JK Movement at that time. I'll just keep it 100. they still are trying to figure it out themselves or try to formulate that trust, have that fear factor involved with their decision making that is uncomfortable. And we've dealt with a couple of that this year, and that's okay. One thing I've always tried to let our families know and our young folks know is the door is never shut. It might be cracked. It might be cracked a little bit, it's getting close to that shut door, but we never shut the door on anybody. So it might not be the time for you to take part of JKM right now, but, if you come back and you want to be seriously considered and you think you're ready, well, come on. So I do want to mention that because, I love our programs. I love my staff. I love the kids. I love the families, the ones who've persevered and stuck with us because we are a long-term mentoring program organization, and the ones who tried it and felt like it wasn't their time and left, but they come back. That's what it's about, and we want to be honest with ourselves too. I learned a long time ago that we can't save every kid. We try, and being in this profession, but what we can do is let them know that we're always there for them.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I've learned. You might not be ready for me right now, but you can always come back. And we've experienced that throughout our years of JK Movement. So I wanted to chain link on that.
Johnny, what are your goals for the young people in St. Paul?
The ultimate end game is to be productive citizens in society.
Amen.
That's the end game. Through all of the programs, all of the lessons, all of the experiences that they have with us, the trusting relationship piece of it with our staff, going on field trips, learning the lessons, soft and hard life skills, and getting it 100% rawness. We want you to be a productive citizen at the end of your experiences with JK Movement, and to be able to give that energy back to someone who might need it, because paying it forward is very important.
That part. Karen, what about you? What are your goals for the City of St. Paul youth in doing this work?
Actually, to be able to reach as many as we can, as Johnny mentioned, we're not going to be able to reach all the scholars, which I really wished we could. I would love to see just a complete change in our communities, and we're working towards that. However, we know we won't be able to reach them all, but we want to reach as many as we possibly can, and we're going to do everything possible to keep the JK movement strong and keep it moving forward and keep working with our community partners to be able to at least try to succeed at getting as many scholars as possible and on the right path.
Lindsay, your turn.
I mean, those answers, how can you
They
compete
stole
with
them.
that?
They stole the answers
those
from you.
answers. No, I mean, they're correct. I mean, that's what we all want to see is, a better future for all of them. And I think what I see in the little time that I've been here, I loved the little progresses. I think those really show you that you're doing something here. And they may be little, but to them they're huge, and to us they're huge. And I think that gives me goosebumps, and it gives me hope for the future for all of them.
Johnny, how can people volunteer and how can people donate?
Yes, so we have a email link, info@thejkm.org. We have our website, www.thejkm.org. Right now, our phone lines are a little confusing, so I normally use my own cell phone right now, which is 651-558-7815. And then once we interact and figure out exactly what you want to do, either volunteer or donate, we do have a donation button on our website as well. But if they're interested in volunteering, we can send them the link, and they have to go through the protocol of signing up and all that jazz, and us doing our compliance to make sure they're legit, So, but there are ways to gain access of filling out that information. So once they reach out to us through our email or website, then we can go from there.
Thank you guys so much for coming in. I
Thanks for
appreciate
having
it.
us.
The city and organizations within St. Paul are working to rehabilitate intervene, and rebuild safer neighborhoods. Again, this podcast is about being able to connect with you on alternative public safety matters, programs, and your local growth and healing opportunities. If you'd like to learn more about the JK movement and how to donate more, please visit thejkm.org. Again, that's thejkm.org. If you'd like to learn more about Community First Public Safety and Office of Neighborhood Safety, please visit stpaul.gov, click on Residents, scroll down to Public Safety.